live a more fulfilled, better life. So that's my why. So yeah.
And what does it feel like?
Look at you interviewing me, ma'am. All right, so today I have a friend of the show, a friend of mine, Bethany Hawkins, on with us. She is a podcast producer extraordinaire and podcast host, and I'm just super excited to have you here. Bethany, how are you?
Hello, my friend. I am so excited that I get to start my Tuesday speaking with you. So I am elated.
I appreciate you. And you know what's funny? In the true Bethany fashion, you kind of like you knew where this was going because a second ago you asked me how's my soul today. So the reason I say that is because what I've been doing lately on the podcast is I've been asking my guests as we start the conversation, how are they PMS? So physically, mentally, and spiritually. Because me and my best friend got into the habit of doing this because it's really common for us to be like, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. When really we're not fine, right? So I want you and also the guests to just like really think about how am I doing really? So how are you PMS? You can share as much or as little as you want.
So physically, I am better. As you know, I was going through a bout of a flare up for my autoimmune disorder, which is no bueno. And also, I put it on myself because I know I can't be eating gluten. And girl,
You're human. You
I'm
are
human.
human.
And gluten
You
is
are
so
human.
good.
It is.
Can we just honor the gluten gods? Even though they have forsaken me? So for the last month, I truly and utterly had to, again, stop gluten wholeheartedly. So that has made me feel so much better physically. Like, my flare-ups have been reduced significantly because of it. And I'm like, typical Bethany.
Listen, it is typical human. I get it.
Typical human. And in turn, that has also helped a little bit of my mind fog and my overwhelm. People don't realize how food can truly affect their whole being.
Yeah.
So that has also, because my mind hasn't been as funky, Medina, as it was, that has allowed me to really go outside and enjoy the weather before I start my day. So I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing that and just taking a moment and literally listening to the birds chirp. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't have my phone out there. I'm not reading a book. I'm just being one in my backyard with nature.
I love
So
it.
it's all coming around
Mm-hmm.
in this 2024-ness.
I get it. I get it. I get it. So I'm happy that you are doing well, that you are better, and that the flare up has subsided. So that's good. Yes, that's one thing that I always try to talk about is like our bodies and our minds. It's all one vessel, you know?
Mm.
If one is impacted, the other one's going to be impacted too eventually. So it makes sense that while you were having your flare up, that of course, like you felt foggy because your body was just like, girl, we going through it. And
Like,
we're gonna put
will
all
you
of our energy there.
yes, will you please take a nap? Just sleep. Just sleep 24/7. And then when you get up, please don't have a bagel because
Because we just fought the last bagel you
we
had.
just fought the last bagel. We're doing battles in here.
Oh goodness. So when we met, I think when you first opened up your business, right? This was like at the very beginning of the pandemic, so early 2020. And I think you mentioned that you had transitioned from education at that time. Is that right?
I transitioned from criminal justice.
Oh, criminal justice. Why
Yes.
did I say education? I just knew you were a teacher.
I worked with
Wow.
attorneys who can act like children, so I mean,
Okay,
that makes
fair.
sense. That all makes sense.
So talk to me about what led to the transition from criminal justice into being an entrepreneur and specifically in the podcasting space.
So, in 18 and a half years that I was in the criminal justice realm, I was either at a defense attorney's office or I was at the district attorney's office. And I just got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. And I had paid off all of my student loans for my criminal justice degrees and certifications. So
Mhm.
I was like, now is the time, now is the hour. So I was just emotionally depleted, not only from the type of work, because nobody comes into either a defense attorney or district attorney's office having the best day of their life.
Yeah.
Never, ever. It's always the worst case scenario that you never would want or expect to occur. And when I was at the defense attorney's office, I ran the gamut from, speeding tickets, habitual
Mhm.
offenders tickets, all the way to we represented a person who was accused of murder.
Mhm.
And for the district attorney's office, it was all felonious matters. So it went everything from habitual offender status, which is a felony driving level
Mhm.
offense, all the way to attempted murder.
Mhm.
So in addition to just being depleted with the type of work, there was a lot of microaggression in which I received. There was an ongoing joke that I would never get fired because I was the token, because I was the only marginalized woman or man for that. There was no other people besides Caucasians
Mhm.
in the entire building, including the courthouse, besides
Mhm.
myself. So I was
Wow.
it.
Wow.
And in the hierarchy, it was the district attorney, the deputy district attorney, and then myself. So I had pretty high ranking for people to just feel comfortable enough to
Say
ask
whatever.
me if I was celebrating Kwanzaa in October because I was wearing brown. So it was just pure madness and ballyhoo. And I was like, Husa. Every day when I would be driving to work, be having panic attacks. I'd be feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I had people come up to me and be like, I didn't know you were black because for a long time I straightened my hair. And then one time I was like, forget this. I'm just wearing my hair natural. And we were like, oh, why is your hair like that? Or people trying to touch me when I did straighten my hair.
Mm.
It was just a weird.
Listen, I get it. I get it. I get it. And I feel like people listening have been in similar situations. Yes.
And it
Mm-hmm.
makes you feel crazy when you're the
Mm-hmm.
only one. It makes you feel like, am I making a big deal out of this? Or people, I, for a long period of time, did extraditions. And dealing with extraditions, I had to transport somebody who had a warrant from out of state back to the state. A lot of paperwork. One of the paperwork involved police departments and having a police officer identify this individual. And it was a whole bunch of work that I had to do. So we would converse a lot on the telephone, and then they would have to come in and sign the affidavit that I had prepared for them. And they would say, no, I'm looking for Bethany. And I say, I am Bethany. And they're like, you're Bethany? And I'd be like, yes. What did you expect? Why can't I
Mm-hmm.
be Bethany? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Excuse me?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
had said to my husband in the very beginning of 2019, I need to leave this job.
Yeah.
I am not going to make it past this year if I could. And I was only 2 years away from getting into the retirement. And I could not sustain another 24 months. I just could not
Mm-hmm.
do it. And my husband saw it. He
Mm-hmm.
knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, I want to create my own business and I want it to be in podcasting. And he said, babe, I don't know what that means, but I support you. We are a 2 income family though, so I need you to get some clients. So I was like, okay, bet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I got into podcasting is because my coworker, still a friend, introduced me to LeVar and Reads, which is a podcast
Mm.
where my uncle LeVar, he isn't my biological uncle, but he's an uncle in all of our hearts and minds. He just owes me like
Mm-hmm.
46 birthday presents. He reads you a story, and it totally transformed me back to reading Rainbow and sitting in the
Yeah.
living room and watching him share stories and like begging my brother to bring me to the library to pick up that book because the Robert said so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
He
I've
was the
always
OG influencer.
he that man, I think he kind of has an understanding of the effect that he's had on people, but I truly don't think he knows. He is an
Yeah.
earth angel.
Yeah.
And if anybody comes out with anything bad to say about him, I will be rocking back and forth in a corner like, la 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 la, I can't hear you. Because I cannot believe that that man has done any wrong. So I started listening to this podcast and I completely binged it. And then, as podcast distribution platforms do, it goes into another podcast that is kind of similar. And I started listening to women that sound like us, that had the same experiences as us. And I was like, oh, bleep, I'm not alone. This is common
Mhm.
experiences for people who have a wee bit of melanin in their skin. Like,
Mhm.
and let's not get it twisted. For the people who aren't looking at this video, I am high yellow. I am not dark and anyway. Some people don't even know what I am. Like, I am all black, and people are like, what? But are you? Hey, mommy, no, no,
Right,
so.
right,
Like, I Negra.
right.
And I understand that being light skinned has privileges as well. And
Mhm.
having the hair texture that I have has privileges as well. So if I was experiencing this, I can't imagine what my
Mhm.
son, who's darker complexed, who has
Mhm.
dreads and a
Mhm.
male, and he's a big kid,
Mhm.
experiences. So I started
Sure.
listening to these women, and they were talking about their entrepreneurship journey. Elaine Fluker was one of them, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so amazing! I
Mhm.
want to create something that women who are sitting in their cubicle having the same experience as me can pop something in their ear and have a friend that they have never met tell them that it's okay and they're going to get through it." And I
Mhm.
did in the past 5 years, and we've won awards, and our clients have won awards, and who
It's
knew?
been amazing. It's been amazing. Your organization, your company is called Crackers and Soup, right?
Correct.
Why did you name it Crackers and Soup? I've always been curious.
It's so funny. I just did a TikTok on this about 5 days ago because everybody says, "Why is cracker and soup? Why cracker and soup?" So I love me some food. Like, food is my whole jam, and I think that food also brings people together, even if they
Mhm.
don't realize that that is the thing. And during my search and finding a name for my business, I didn't want to name it Bethany Hawkins because ew, gross. Like, ugh. I am so I am actually really shy. It doesn't come across as that, but I am the biggest extroverted introvert you will ever meet. So I
Mhm.
don't want people to be like, Bethany Hawkins. When we went to She Podcast, people came up to me and they were like, "Oh my god, Bethany Hawkins!" And I wanted to crawl into like a rock. I was
No,
like, "Hi,
really?
yes." I get very red. Like, Caroline was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Ew, it's so weird." So during my discovery of the name for my company, my daughter, she was little at the time. She was going through a soup phase, and she was like, "Mama, I just want soup. I just want soup." And I said, "Okay, but we don't have any crackers," because she had eaten all the crackers at this point.
Mhm.
And she was like, "Well, crackers make it better." And I was like, because I'm such a foodie. So essentially, what Crackers and Soup is your podcast is the soup. And then we just come in and make it better.
I love it. I love it. So good. So, so good. So talk to me about um is there a specific type of a podcast that you work on? Or do you take all types of clients, or do you have like a special type of project that you particularly love to work on?
We work with marginalized women and true allies of marginalized women. And I will sniff out if you are not a true ally like a fart in a car. Like, the way that I have my discovery call set up is very purposeful. I don't want to work with anybody that doesn't excite us. I don't want to work with anybody who is disrespectful to myself or for my team. Green foldable dollar bills are not worth all of that aggravation to me.
Sure.
I only work with women that we are aligned with, that we
Hmm.
believe in their mission and we believe in their story. And that shows up in many different ways for many different people. I have one client who's just strictly solo. I have another client who has guests and solo episodes for her podcast. I have another client who is just completely a narrative style podcast,
Hmm.
and hers involves a lot of sound design. I have another client that is a narrative style podcast, but she actually interviews her guests, and then I write the script for her and she does the voiceover. So there is such a plethora of different ways that you can show up in this podcasting platform. And that's why I love it so freaking much,
Yeah.
because it can be curtailed to who you are and how you show up, so that you can show up with ease and grace and share all of your amazingness, and your listening audience can feel that and they can get equally hyped, and then they're sharing your genius, and then the
Hmm.
person that they told about your genius, they're sharing your genius, and it's just such a ripple effect of making people feel good with knowledge.
Yeah.
Can
So
you
tell
tell I
me.
hate what I do? I
You do. You hate this. This is
should just
not for
find
you.
something else.
This is not for you. Talk to me about what you think makes a good podcast.
I love this question. What makes a good podcast is somebody who's actually excited about their podcast. And you can truly tell the difference, because if you're just listening, that is only one sense. And that sense can let you know if you're excited to talk to the guest, if you're excited to share that information. And if you really don't feel the exuberance, you can feel that.
Hmm.
So, being excited about your content, having some sort of plan and action, and not just winging it just for winging its sake.
Hmm.
Understanding who your listening audience is, because that's going to better align you with the message that you're going to share with them. Also, if you have a podcast for a long period of time, there can be a sense of overwhelm, and there could be just a sense of tired and you want to just take a break. I think the best podcast takes breaks,
Hmm.
because then you can come back, you can share all of the things that you've done during your break, and you have a renewed energy.
Yeah.
So I guess that, like, the bullets of it would be being excited about your topic, being excited about who you're talking to, curtailing your information to your listening audience, and taking a break when needed. I
Yeah.
think that those things make the best podcasts.
Yeah, heavy on the break. When I first started podcasting, I thought that because the podcast that I had listened to, I didn't realize had a whole team behind them. It was a machine, and they came 52 weeks out of the year. They were consistent. So I thought, well, that's how I need to show up too. First of all, not realizing how much goes into making just one episode. I thought, okay, I'm going to get my mic and I'm going to plug it into my laptop that I already have, and bam, we're going to get a podcast. No, there's so much, like, if you're going to do it intentionally, finding out who my listener is and finding stories and people that resonate with them takes time and effort and energy. And even before I hop on the mic to talk to the people, I have to read up on them and to know about them and what their expertise is. And then after that, the editing and all that good stuff. So long story short, I burnt out quick. Um, because I was trying to do all the things on top of, I'm not a full time creator, so I have a job and I have small kids. It takes a lot out of you. So if I was going to give, and my kids are home, forgive me, if I would give one piece of advice to people who are starting out a podcast or just podcasters in general, it definitely would be to take breaks and to give yourself grace. What would your advice be to podcasters?
Know your bandwidth.
Hmm.
Know how much time and energy you have to reserve to podcasting. And don't let all of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas truly affect you. Because if you consistently show up when you tell your audience you're going to show up, and if that is once a week, every other week, once a month, as long as you're consistent, your audience is going to show up for you. As long as you're sharing the fact that you dropped a new episode, your audience is going to show up for you. But you can't know that unless you know your bandwidth. And I think that that kind of goes a little bit into knowing who you are as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you best show up? I know that I'm a person who really struggles with just turning on the camera and talking into a microphone. I like energy. I like
Hmm.
rapport. I like the volley of the back and forth conversation. If I know that about myself and a podcast producer is telling me, well, I only need to do solo episodes for season one, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, knowing who you are, knowing how you best shine on your genius, and knowing your bandwidth are vital things that people don't talk about when they're ready to create a podcast. Everybody's always like, well, what microphone should I use?
Yeah.
Well, what should I be
Hmm.
on YouTube or should I just be audio? These are things that are important, but you have to know your bandwidth, who you are, and you have to know your why. Why are you creating this podcast? Why are you doing this? Because when, as you shared so eloquently about getting overwhelmed, and thank you for sharing that, when you have to tap into why am I continuing to do this, you have to go back to that initial why.
For sure. Yeah. For
So
sure.
when you were feeling tired and overwhelmed, when you tapped into that why, what did that why look like for you?
Oh, for me, my why, and I have to reference it pretty often recently, as of recent, um, is there are tons of Black and Brown women who do not feel seen in the wellness space and are looking for wellness resources, but they feel excluded, they feel marginalized by the wellness industry at large, right? They don't feel like they're affluent enough, they are not light enough, they are not thin enough, all of that BS. And there are conversations that need to be had so that people can feel seen and get some tidbits, learn a little bit about what could possibly be helpful. Because I get not every episode is going to be something that is specifically for the one listener, but it's okay. There are tons of episodes where you can get a couple nuggets that's going to help you live a more fulfilled, better life. So that's my why. So yeah.
And what does it
Look
feel
at you.
like
Look at you interviewing me, ma'am. No, but go ahead.
when you get that feedback from somebody who has sent you a comment or sent you an email or sent you a
Mhm,
DM saying, "Thank you. This truly resonated with me." What does
mhm.
that feel like in your spirit? Cuz that's part of being well as too.
Yeah, for sure. You know what is crazy? I don't know if it's the word is crazy, but what usually happens is I'll have a conversation with my mind or with my husband. I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm done. Like, Be Well Sis has like reached its end. And without a fail, either that day or the next day, I will get an email or a DM from somebody saying how this episode helped them, or where have I been, checking in, or something, or just sharing how the podcast has been helpful without fail. And I feel like for me, that is an indication of God's like, girl, just keep going, stop tripping, just keep going. Like, this is reaching somebody.
I love
Yeah,
that. I love that. And
yeah.
I think that when we get synchronicities like that, it just reminds us that we're walking in the purpose.
Yes. Yeah.
We're walking in our true essence of what we need to be doing. And
Yeah.
you do that so eloquently. You do that so well. You show up for everybody, for your boys, for your listeners, for your husband.
Yeah.
And it's always just a good, gentle reminder that you need to show up for yourself as well.
For sure. For sure.
So, however, Be Well Sis plays out in the next 6 months, in the next year, in the next 4 years, between your awards, your listening audience, your guests, I just want to say thank you, and you have made a significant difference.
Oh, thank you, Bethany. Stop. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I actually want to talk a little bit more about how I think one thing that we have in common is that we have multiple hats. I think as well as the audience, like the people who tune in here are multifaceted, like you. So you are a mom, you are a wife, a business owner, a mentor. So talk to me about and a caregiver to your parents, and that's something that I can relate to too. So talk to me about how you have been able to to seamlessly transition through all of the different hats that you wear throughout the day, throughout the month? Like, how are you doing it all essentially? And how do you take care of Bethany?
That word seamless is filled with tomfoolery and ballyhoo. That word is a lie. Lie. Don't let this good hair on the camera fool you. Because before I got in the shower, hot, raggedy mess. It's literally moment by moment. There
Yeah.
are some moments when I just feel overwhelmed with joy and gratitude. And then there are just the other moments where I'm like, where's my weighted blanket?
Mm-hmm.
And get out of my room
Mm-hmm.
because this is where I just need to hibernate. And it truly, you mentioned PMS at the beginning of this conversation. It truly fluctuates with like my cycle too.
Fair, fair. Hormones play a real deal. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes, especially being a 46-year-old woman, that
Mm-hmm.
my hormones now are not how my hormones were when I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing myself, knowing where I am within that month time, as well as the stress. What is happening with my mother who has dementia? What is happening with my family dynamics dealing with my mother who has dementia?
Yeah.
What is happening with my daughter now that school's out? She has much more things that she wants to do throughout the day, that she's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, well, mummy's at work, so
Mm-hmm.
let's go to Starbucks, and not understanding that I have a job.
Yeah.
I have a
You're
home business.
here. Yeah. You're
I'm here
physically here.
physically.
Right. Right.
Or
Right.
like, hey mom, can you make me a quesadilla? No. And
Not
then
right now. Right.
not right now. And then my husband is hella supportive. And also, he's a pain in the ass. I love that man more
Sure.
than anything, but he can be a pain in the ass. So,
Sure.
so kind of navigating through the stressors, as well as having your own business, is a journey of
Mm-hmm.
resilience. It is not for the faint of heart. There are ebbs and flows when it comes to money and clients. And during the summertime, there are a lot of season breaks, which I invite for my clients and for anybody for a podcast. But also, when there's a season break, there's zero funds coming in. And,
Mm-hmm.
I still have to pay the mortgage. The mortgage
Mm-hmm.
company doesn't care
Mm-hmm.
that if no clients have come in that month. So coming
Yeah.
up with different ways to make sure that the revenue is coming in. So all of these stressors, I have to truly tune into source and universe and God and ancestors and just be like, I need y'all to hold me down.
Mm-hmm.
And
That faith.
as I mentioned, being sick, having an autoimmune disorder, because sometimes when that rears up, I literally can't do anything, not because I don't want to, but because I physically can't.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a journey trying to navigate this life. Anybody that says it's easy breezy cover girl either has a whole team of people
Mm-hmm.
who is at their beck and call. And I think that people, even with a team of people, they have different stressors
Mm-hmm.
than I have. Or they're just liars.
Yeah. Yeah. That's real. That's super real. Um, One thing that I thought about too as you were talking was, earlier I asked you what made a good podcast, and you said, knowing, yourself. I think, um, in journeys like podcasting, like entrepreneurship, I think you get to learn yourself too. Like, you may start day one with having a sense of who you are and thinking like, this is what I need, this is my bandwidth, this is what I can do, this is what I seek to do. And then as you like go through it, after month one, month 20, month 30, you're like, oh, you know what? Actually, I've evolved a little bit. And I think it's important to embrace yourself as you evolve, as you go through your different transitions and things. One thing that I have been really trying to sit in is me being perimenopausal. Like, I almost out of my 30s now, and things are different. Like, my body is different. And I'm embracing it. I'm not trying to fight that anymore. Just this is it, and okay, like let's roll with it. Yeah.
There is a beautiful thing about getting older and no longer caring. No longer caring about people's
Yeah.
perspectives.
Yeah.
No longer caring about what people think about you. There just comes this realization that life is so short and so long at the same time.
Yep. Yep.
And if I'm their entertainment, then God bless, let me be their entertainment because they're not mine.
Right, right, right,
So
right,
I'm clearly winning in this
right,
exchange.
right. Really and truly. And it's just and I think the realization to that life is so short but so long, like what really matters, it helps you to realize like what matters. Like what matters is yeah, for me it's I can count on two hands what really matters. All the other stuff like is a waste, is an energy drain, a time drain, a resource drain in general. You know, yeah. So I've been really enjoying that. I went to a comedy show the other day, and the comedian was fucking awful. The headliner, but the guy who opens up for him was great, and he was saying how he's in his 40s, and he's just like, yeah, it just feels good to like, you wake up and you're just like, I ain't got time for this shit, like, so I will not be doing it. Like, they invite me to brunch, you know what, fuck the brunch, I'm not going to the brunch, I don't feel like it. I'm gonna stay in my house today. And that's that, and it's gonna be okay. Yes, it will, like, it is okay. The freedom of like saying no or yes with your whole chest.
Yes, yes. And I think that too, it has been such a realization of the trivial crap just doesn't matter watching my mom's decline
Yeah.
while I watch my children grow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm.
So it is the perfect situation in which I'm watching people come into their own.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said to my middle, it's your birthday coming up soon. What kind of cake do you want? How do you want to celebrate? And he was just like, can we just not? And I
Mm.
was like, a part of me was like, what?
Of
What?
course. Yeah.
And then also, I'm like, he's 17.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what he wants. And if that's not something that he wants, I have to honor that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay. And I didn't say, you're killing me, because if you, I want them to feel comfortable enough to express themselves and not get a guilt trip in return.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just like, if you should change your mind,
Mm-hmm.
let me know
Mm-hmm.
and we can do the damn thing.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then celebrating like my mom's 82nd birthday in January and being like, you don't even know how old you are, but we're still going to
Yeah.
celebrate you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think that like all of the other frivolous things, even money, like
Mm-hmm.
money is just paper.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And people beg, borrow, and steal for it. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and kill. Like there's a whole snapped show
For sure.
of people who are killing people for money. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
for what?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Money provides freedom, it provides opportunity, it provides security. But look around to see if you have those things anyways.
Mm.
Do you have freedom? Do you have opportunity? Do you have security?
Mm-hmm.
And then just allow money to come in at that time.
And also I feel like sometimes because of the culture that we're in, which like American culture is money focused, right? Sometimes we do the extreme to risk our freedom, or we might be getting buku bucks, but we're not free because we're spending 80 to 100 hours at somebody's desk, at somebody's office. And then what? Like you run yourself ragged, and do you get a chance to enjoy it? Like when people talk about legacy, it drives me insane when they think their legacy is how much money they leave behind.
Ooh,
Like,
say that again for the people in the back.
like, okay, like, not to get me wrong, yes, money is a resource that we need, right? But above all else, absolutely not. Like, I think if that's how we live life, we really miss the point of life, especially if you have people who are coming behind you, like children, auntie, nieces, nephews, like cousins, people who are looking towards you, or yeah, if that's all you have to offer, you missed it. You really missed it.
And I think that
Um,
that's another reason why podcasting is so important, because it allows the generation after you to hear what you are sharing, to hear your voice. There are so many people in this world who've never heard their grandparents' voice.
hmm,
And as you get older, and if you want to retire this, as your boys get older and they
hmm,
start having a family for themselves, you can say, hey, listen to what I did back in the day.
yeah,
Listen to how I showed up. Listen to the genius that just dripped from my mouth. Like, so many people
yeah,
don't realize the importance of that, of
yeah,
having a video, of having an audio of their former loved ones. It's something to be cherished. It truly and utterly is. And I think that that's why podcasting is so important as well. Is it's can be handed to generation to generation.
yeah. I think about how podcasting is very much like it's brought things full circle. Like, our people really are like oral tradition, like, most indigenous cultures are, right? Like the oral tradition is really, really important. Like thinking about like many cultures, like at the end of the night, like the grandparents would sit with the grandkids and tell stories, and then eventually those grandkids are now grandparents telling those same stories. I think that now podcasting allows for that same type of community and passing on of oral tradition as well. And the reason I've been thinking about this is because there's this one um, what do we call her? She's a social media influencer in the wellness space who I really admire. However, like she always like downplays podcasts. She's like, "No, I don't want to be on your podcast," and just, I wrote the book or read the book. And I'm just like, "Okay, cool." But also, I think she also speaks heavily against white supremacy ideology. One of the tenets of white supremacy is worship of the written word. So I'm like, but okay. But I digress. But really, really good point what you're saying. Like a lot of us have not heard what our grandparents, great grandparents have heard sound like, and yeah, this is a medium that they can our voices and our ideas and stories can live on. So true, so powerful. I didn't even consider that.
I find that so
Yeah.
interesting of what you had said about the influencer, because there are so many people in this country and around the world who can't read.
Yep. It's an epidemic. Yep.
It's essentially gatekeeping,
Yep.
because I think of my father who had an 8th grade education
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
he could not read well. And although he couldn't, he still thrived. My
Sure.
parents thrived. He worked in construction, and
Mm-hmm.
my mother worked at the telephone company, and they stayed at the job until they retired. And if we are not allowing the people who cannot read well not to have vital information that we're sharing,
Yep.
then what makes us better than people who gatekeep?
Exactly. 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 And that's one of the things that I thought about when people ask me, well, why do you start podcasting? I'm like, because I feel like everybody, most of us have a smartphone. We can have access to it. Like a podcast is free. If you want to listen to it, it's popping in your ears. Bam, you got it. Like it's a way to equalize, or is it equalize? To bring some kind of equity kind of to information, you know? So very, very true. We're done with gatekeeping here. I think sometimes things have to be pointed out to folks. They may not have seen it. It might be a blind spot for sure. Yeah. But Bethany, you are incredible. I've been a fan since day one. Before we go, where can the people find you, find your business, work with you, all of the good things?
They can find me at crackersinsoup.com. Anything that doesn't have to do with food is literally us. Like, so if you just type in Google crackers and soup, if it's not a recipe for crackers and soup, you'll find us at Crackers in Soup. And then I'm all over these internet streets. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok. Anywhere that your little thumb wants to bring you, I'll probably show up somehow, some way there.
I love it. I love it. So I'm of course going to have all of the links down below in the show notes. That way it's an easy click for you to go ahead and visit her website. Also to follow on all the social media platforms. She has great gems and tidbits on socials. So please, if you are an aspiring podcaster or if you're established, go follow. Like, yes, please. But thank you so much, Bethany. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Tell me one thing that you're going to do this weekend to make you be well.
Ooh, to make me myself be well. I mean, the boys want to go to the pool every damn day, um, and that's not my favorite place. But for myself, you know what? There is this spot downtown. It's like right along the train tracks. There's like a bunch of restaurants that they build around it, and I'm like, you know what? I want to walk the whole thing. I think it's a couple of miles, but my husband never wants to do it with me. But I'm like, you know what? Maybe this weekend I'll do it myself. So that's what I will do. I will take myself on a nice little walk downtown.
Will you post it on some sort of social media and tag me so I can
You know what? Yes,
encourage
this will
you?
be accountability. Yes, yes,
I
yes,
love
yes.
it. Yes. Yes. I'm always giving homework. I'm a homework bitch.
Really and truly, I usually, for the people who the listeners here, I usually roll up to our little get-togethers with a notebook. Like, let me take some notes, some follow up, some action items.
I'm a CTA gal.
Okay, but thank you so much. And what are you gonna do besides
I
stay away from gluten?
besides stay away from gluten and I, we done broke like I got a restraining order against it. I am going to finish the book We Were Liars.
Ooh.
Yes. So one of my besties recommended it. I like the way that it's written, because it's written in kind of a choppy, weird form. So I truly have to pay attention when I'm reading it
Mm-hmm.
in order to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I am the queen of guess what's gonna happen. My husband
Gotcha.
hates watching movies with me because because in the first 15 minutes I'm like, he did it.
That's my husband. And it's usually right. I'm just like, you don't fucking ruin the movie. Hello, like, give me a second.
And I'm like, sir, I was in criminal justice for too long. Like, I know when I see a suspect. I don't care if he's playing the good guy now. And in this book, I don't really know what's happening.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so I am
You're on your
going to finish
toes.
this book, We Were Liars. I'll let you know how it was.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.